following is a presentation of Main Street Media, your source for news, sports, and information on Main Street in Middle Tennessee.
When you said Greg Ruff, I said, who?
Yeah, who's that
but
guy?
He's one of my best friends. He really is. Long time, one of the first people when I came to this marketplace. He was getting started as well. He's the assistant athletic director for external communications and sports media and broadcasting at Trevecca Nazarene University. And he's done a lot of different things. Belmont, basketball, men's basketball play-by-play, Vandy women play-by-play, Vandy baseball play-by-play, the Nashville Stars. At one time, we had a, what was that, the
World Basketball League.
Yeah, I think you had to be, 4'8" or shorter,
or
to
6'6" and under.
Okay, 6'6" and under. He's done so many different things, and again, one of my best friends, Greg Ruff. What's up, Gregor?
That's where we met, wasn't it? The Nashville Stars, or that's where we got to know each other.
Yeah, that's we were.
Rudy Schiffer had a open bar at the games, and so Pogue was there every time.
I don't blame him. I'm not going to fault him for
Can we
that.
start the show over again? I mean,
fault him for doing all that, man. How are things?
Well,
at Trevecca?
I got his and mine because he doesn't drink.
I'm doing great. It's a good year to be. We're not post COVID, but we're back to being closer to post COVID with our fans at Trevecca and our games and stuff like that. It's just a lot of fun.
All right, so we got you here because we were discussing the Sports Talk Radio in Nashville. You look at it now, it's like, wow, man, it's crazy. 2 stations dedicated all the time. Actually, 3 stations dedicated to it all the time. But back in the day, Greg, that wasn't the case, was it?
No, it really wasn't. And it really started before I got to the market. But how it was before I got to the market was it was usually somebody as a part of a morning team or afternoon team that talked sports. And the Waking Crew was one of those that had him, and Plaster was the sports guy on there sometimes. And just Larry Munson was the sports guy very early on. And that's kind of how it started before they let sports guys take over, or sports girls take over now.
Well, it wasn't sports station, right?
No,
really, the first true 24-hour sports station was the one I'm on, WNSR, and the first morning show. But it was a WLAC, had Les Jameson in the afternoon news. It was a news station, but then it would format to sports with Charlie Mack and Bob Bell and Bill King, who's on our station
Bill
now.
Stewart, June Stewart's husband,
but
was
prior to that, though, Dr. K, and there was another show, and Duncan Stewart. Take us back to the very, very start.
Well, that was Bill Stewart, as I understand it, was a part of the very first one. I think Charlie Mack was a part of that, and maybe Bob Bell was a part of that one. And that was really where it started, was back then. And it was forced in there, and they had to fight to even stay on the air a lot of times to keep the show on the air. They had to sell immediately and prove they were profitable and because there was like this big thing is like a lot of the talk stuff, and especially sports talk, sometimes was on a music station. And so when you start doing the sports talk in the middle of the afternoon or even the evening, there would be a lot of complaints about it. But where it kind of got its first start was stations doing the Vol Network or Vanderbilt or whatever pro sports. They would have those games in the evening. So they started doing sports talk on the nights that they didn't have ball games. And so that's how it really started at that point. And the people who did it, a lot of times were play-by-play people that didn't have another job. And so that's how they filled in the gap financially, was doing that.
I remember 980 AM.
WSIX. I was there when they started that. Duncan Stewart started that. They were the Vol station at that time. And that's where I got my first night doing sports talk. And Duncan Stewart said, I can't come in tonight. I want you to do the post game. And what I didn't realize that I had to answer the phone calls, run the spots, take the phone calls. And so the only way I could do it was to take the calls blindly. People would call in, I put them on hold, and then I had to go and deal with it. It was a train wreck.
No internet, so there's no way you could, catch up on a game across the country. You had no idea.
No, the way we did show prep back then was we'd go to the Moskovitz down on Elston Place, and they got newspapers in from all over the country, all over the world, really, and of course around the state. And so we'd go down there, and I would spend $10 buying newspapers, and then you would go through them and read them. That's how I did a high school football show, and that's how I got all the information. I'd buy Chattanooga, Knoxville, Memphis, and every little town that I could find. And that's how I found out about high school football back then, was doing that. And you go to the airport sometimes, you could get them there. And then the Tennessean and the Banner would print their newspaper, and you could get it at midnight. And so I'd be coming back
from ball games. The Tennessean you could get at midnight.
Not the Banner. Yeah, you're right. And so
let's differentiate there.
Yeah, sorry about that, Mr. Banner over here.
Yeah, I'm gonna stand
you're
for the
correct.
Banner.
He mutes me, as you can see. But I would be coming back from ball games, and we would run by the newspaper down there, and we'd get it fresh off. If it was after midnight, you could go down and get it right there. And so we would find out. If you had a big win or something like that, you'd want to see how they covered it. So it was neat.
I did it when I was working at the Banner.
Right.
I was there at midnight because I didn't want a 4 o'clock call saying, hey, you got beat on a story, wake up and write the story. So I was there at midnight every night.
And it was the city edition, wasn't it? Because there was different editions.
Right. Yeah.
And then look at you now. So, all right. So those
look at me now.
Those early
He's on
days
this show
of the AM, was it something you want to do long term, or were you thinking this is going to make it or not make it? Because at that time, there was no template in Nashville for this.
Yeah.
Zero.
Well, I was hired by Eric Marshall. WSIX was in the Channel 2 building, and there was one window in the entire building, and that was where the studio was.
Right.
And I walked in there, and Eric Marshall, I was interviewing to work on the FM, WSIX FM, which was, they had just brought Jerry House back to town. And so, or maybe that was the first time that he came into town, but I had no idea about anything about the AM station. And so but they knew I broadcast sports at Trevecca as a student. And so Eric Marshall, I walked in and it was the second interview, and he started telling me about what I needed to do and all that kind of stuff. I said, well, hold on a second, do I have a job? And I couldn't believe it was my first job in radio, paid, because I worked at Trevecca for free. And so it was great. That was my first job. And I worked overnights on the weekend. So on Sunday night, my job was to get Jerry House's show ready. So I had to pull all the music and the spots and all that kind of stuff. And then I'd watch Jerry House. So I had a great work ethic in front of me. I mean, this is the guy, most popular guy in town, won all kinds of awards, and he worked his butt off. And I was like, if he works his butt off, then I better work mine off twice. And I've done that a couple of times.
You have. You've done quite well with
and
that.
It came back.
It came back, yes. That's the problem. It always comes back. But that's how I got in. And then one day they just said, hey, you did sports. Can you run the ball game over? And I was wanting to make money any way I could. So I started producing games and stuff like that. And then I started producing talk shows. And that's how I got into it. And once I started doing talk, I just fell in love with it. I mean, it was great. I knew I loved doing broadcasting play-by-play. I loved doing music, but I had no idea about talk, and I just got thrown into it. And that one night, that was the night. It was awful. It was a nightmare, but I knew that I could do it then, and I knew that's what I wanted to do.
WSIX eventually became WTN, which started sport. Duncan Stewart, very much a part of it. In the mornings, was doing the House Foundation with Jerry House. And then his afternoon sports talk show, he was pulling that daily double. And then he brings in Plaster. And the only thing George was doing, George Plaster, was obviously our sports talk icon in the city. Was a 5 o'clock hit, the wide world of sports, according to Plaster. That was it.
That's it?
That's it.
That was it.
That's how he started at
he
5
had 15
o'clock.
sponsors for like a minute segment.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
And it was great, but he put everything into it. And you saw early on, I want to go back. You said WSIX became WWTN. Well, WSIX AM sold and it became a religious station. And literally everybody that was on staff was gone. We were done. And about a week later, they bought WWTN and brought all of us back.
At 99.7.
99.7 FM.
Right.
And then it went into bankruptcy after that. And so
George Plaster saved it. from Brent, according to him.
Yes, according to George.
He saved the
You're correct.
Predators. He
Yes.
saved.
Like no one ever was like, "Hey, there's a spelling bee coming up. You ready?"
Do you
for
remember
it?
your GPA in high school?
Yes, it was a 3.3
You're so lying. When did you stop playing football?
when they cut me.
That will do it.
I actually know what she's going to make, and I think you'll enjoy it immensely. And you'll be able to do it at home easily.
I look forward to making Pop-Tarts. All right, we will.
Better than that. You'll like it.
Called The Big Payback. You don't know what it is? Thanks for asking. We're going to explain it to you right now. Let's bring in Kelly Wahlberg with the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee. Kelly, thanks for doing this, and good morning to you.
Good morning to you, and thanks for having me. In the past 8 years, not counting this year's total so far, we've raised more than $25 million for thousands of nonprofits here in the Middle Tennessee area.
While federal coverage is really important, often I really think that a lot of the decisions that are going to impact you most are made at the local level. Like where's the stop signs going to go? What's your speed limit going to be? How much you're going to pay in property taxes? We talked about that a lot. And you know, how much funding the schools are going to get. Zoning decisions that are going to impact, you know, which developers can come in and change the neighborhoods and grow the city. And all those decisions are going to be made at the local level.
One of the things that I've learned, and not just in dealing with addiction, but in dealing, I think, with everyday life, is ask for help. You know, if you've got a problem, ask for help. That sounds like something that a lot of us who are raised the way we were raised, you don't ask for help. You know, you find a way, you fight through it. That's what you do. That's not the way to do it. And that's been a big part for me.
Don't want to belabor the point, but you succeeded in the two life thing that you called
For a
it
long
just now,
time.
because it surprised a lot of people. I've known you and you in professional. Everything you did was top notch.
Yep, I messed up one big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all it took, you know, and that's but so much energy and going into making sure you kept it separate and was able to do it. You know, I didn't let it impact job or all those kind of things. I was able to keep those things separate, except for that one time, and that one time was all it took.
But the outpouring.
Oh gosh,
It's still ongoing, isn't it?
Oh.
Yeah. Excuse me, Joe.
No,
but you're right.
No, Joe. You know, I tell you, and I told the story because when I was forced to resign, I mean, I was given two wonderful options: either resign or be fired.
Right.
So I chose to resign, and at that point, they weren't going to say anything. They were just it was going to be, hey, he's left and we wish him well, and which is all they could do, you know, legally and all those kind of things. But that was at the point where I said, no, I can't leave it like this, because then here comes speculation. Here comes all these things. Let's just put this on the table. And so I did. And I, went publicly and said, here's the deal. This is what I'm doing. This is what happened.
Very few would do that of their own volition.
I don't know.
They don't have to.
I don't know.
I think we do know.
Well, I was really, really blessed to have a wonderful wife who was extremely supportive and backed me on all of that. I ran everything through her, but when I did it, Joe, you were talking about the support. The immediate reaction was unbelievable. I mean, I heard from people, it was, I heard from people I've known for a long time. I heard from people I don't know. The amazing thing to me was how many people I heard from who I hold in confidence as I sit here right now, who said, I've been where you are. I have that. I've dealt with that. And there are people in this city, and there are people that we're all very
Probably in this
familiar-
room,
They're
quite
very
frankly.
well. I mean, they're
if we
very
want to be
all,
honest,
they're very
yeah.
all familiar with
Mhm.
that. Said I know exactly what you're dealing with, and I'm with you. And that was getting ready to go into treatment at that time. That was the most supportive, wonderful thing that I could have ever asked for.
How, you don't have to answer this. How dark did it get afterwards when you had to resign? How dark did it get for you?
Or was it a relief?
Well, there was a lot of there were all of those were involved. The dark part, guys, was when you realize you've screwed up. That you had something going that was really, really good, and if you just did this for another 10 years, you could retire and move off into the sunset and everything would be great. When you realize that's not going to happen, you have to deal with that. So that was a bit of an emotional challenge. The relief part of it, as you said, the no longer having to try to hide it was certainly a big plus as it turned out. That surprised me. I didn't know how that would go. And that turned out to be a real positive. And then the support you get from so many people. I mean, not everybody. You get those people who say, well, you got what you deserved. And I don't blame them. I would have done the same thing. And that's fine. Everybody's entitled to that. That's okay. But the vast majority, overwhelmingly, has been really, really positive.
Do you know why? It's 3-4 decades of equity
Maybe
that you built in this market, not only at Vanderbilt, but everything else. And you being a part of the community because you're from here, an Antioch boy. Okay, let's get it right now. Antioch Bears, right? The old one,
1977 graduate
on Blue Hole Road there, over there. Yeah,
president of the class.
Well, salute. But, but that's the equity that you built up by doing it the right way for so long with so many. And this is a people thing.
Yeah.
This isn't of how well you did your job. It's how you did it and people reacted to it.
I guess, and I'm sure there's some truth to that. What I would hope, Greg, and I think one of the things that I hope carries on from this is that there's more of a positive reaction across the board when people go through this. When you find out somebody's got this problem, somebody's dealing with this, you'd like to see more positive reactions from friends and employers and everybody in general, especially if somebody steps up and says, I've got this issue, I need to deal with it. I know I made a mistake. I've got to deal with it. Okay, then let's try to support and help them, because let me tell you what, it's a problem that has only gotten worse. You talk about the COVID issue.
Yeah.
It's only gotten worse.
So you have a chapter written into your life story that you did not want to write, but now you get to write the next chapter and chapters and going forward with you. Are you not say excited for this new part of it, but are you welcoming this new part to say, all right, here's what happened, here's where I am now, and here's how good I am?
Yeah, and doing podcasts like this.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it can't go any farther than this. I mean, I'm done after this.
You're leaving town.
I'm going to grab this mic and drop it when we're done.
But you get to write now. You know who you are.
I appreciate that. I think the best way to describe that, Joe, is I've accepted that God has a plan for me, and I don't know what it is. But my goal is to try to follow it and find it.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that's going to take me. Would I have preferred to write this chapter? No. I've heard people, I have good friends, some of them that are friends of yours, who are in the program who say, I'm grateful to be an alcoholic. I don't get that. I don't understand it. Because if I had the choice, I don't want this. But it is where we are. But I think a big part of this, and so much of my life and probably your lives in the jobs that we have, and I've told people about it, a lot of the jobs that we have had are ego driven. I mean, you're selling yourself, you're doing all those things. They just lead you kind of down that road.
Well, people see you, people hear you in mass like that, and they automatically assume you're like this because you're in that position. Like everybody assumes Joe is a big And he is
Well,
because they've seen him and hear him.
But you have to be
yeah,
perfect.
But yeah,
You had to be perfect to go TV, radio. You had to be perfect at all times.
at
Events,
Vanderbilt especially,
Yeah.
the high standard.
Yeah.
there.
that's tough, man.
Yeah, it is tough. But I think the biggest part for me has been the ability to step back and go, you know what? I don't know what's coming, and that's okay. Because for 40 years, I needed to know exactly what was coming because I was going to create it.
Yeah.
I was going to make that happen, whatever that was. And I was going to make the decision. If it wasn't going to happen, I was going to know why. I was going to be the one that said why. This is different. And, I think I've realized now, I think another thing that's happened this time is I realized the chances of me getting back into what I was doing are very small. There's not that many opportunities. The people that are in are really good. There's no real place to go. I'm over 60. All those things kind of factor in. So now you've got to be able to accept, okay, what's the next thing? Literally, before the job at Tennessee Tech came, and I think I told you, Greg, I'm not sure, but before, literally the week when Karen Likens reached out to me on Twitter from Tennessee Tech, I had interviewed at Publix. I was interviewing with them to stock produce at Publix. And that may be all that's out there right now. And if that is, that's okay. And I think that's the biggest part of this is just accepting if that's what it is, I'm going to be okay with that.
My mother used to get on me about my posture so much.
What is it supposed to be though? Because I've
I think it's sit up, right?
Yeah, but this
Throw your chest out.
like this.
I'm sure it's not this.
Yeah.
And now they're going to sell it in an online auction.
Oh yeah, I did go there. I went there the other day, or not the other day, a couple weeks ago with my dad. We were checking it out.
There?
It was right after we got done with McKendree Towers.
Out there in Dixon.
Yeah. Oh, this is in Dixon. Where is this spaceship? What spaceship is this?
Let's bring into the show Christine Dubry. She's the executive director of Tennessee Senior Olympics. Christine, did I say your name correctly?
Perfectly. Thanks for having me.
Yes. You should be PR for the city of Nashville. That's your new job.
I love supporting different things, and the Parthenon may be my favorite attraction. I don't know.
Buddy Allen, it's a tradition. Come on into our store. Buddy Allen, it's a heritage for 40 years and more. What makes a house kind of special? Close friends walking in the door. Flowers blooming in the springtime and little children playing on a Buddy Allen floor.
Go ahead, your second one.
Well, the second one being,
I got nervous.
I did. I got nervous. I got thinking about something else. I did. And now there's so many places I want to go with Whip, but I want to get it there because I know his history.
Okay.
How close were you at this level or beyond when you played?
Not close at all. I went broke trying to play professional golf, but I enjoyed every moment of it. I tell this story quite often, but when I left MTSU in 2000, I got married the next week. Lori and I moved to Tullahoma. That's where my backers were, and off we went to try to make this thing work. And I was in South Haven, Mississippi, playing in a tournament down there, a place called it was something Creek, Big Creek, something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
Whatever it was. And I I made 15 birdies that week. It was a 72 hole event. I made 15 birdies and a couple bogeys. Maybe I shot like 13 under for the week. And I finished like 15th.
Oh.
My check was like $1,620. I mean, I lost money on the week. The entry fee was $1,000. Yeah. And we were riding home from down there in Mississippi, and my wife said, "You ever thought about doing anything else?" You know, and I can take a hint. So I probably hadn't at that point, but I thought, you know what, she may be right. I don't know that this is for me. And that's actually in the very next year is when I went back to work for Coach Moore, and you know, the rest is history. But I met not any of these guys. These guys are half my age, but you know, Chad Campbell and Zach Johnson and those guys were the guys out playing. Bubba Watson when I was out there, and so. Having been around some of those guys and really seeing the best in the world do it at a high level, I was a long way from that.
You're still the A player in most scrambles around here, right?
Most, yeah. But I'm getting to the age now where that's not even the case anymore.
So not one moment of regret of hanging it up?
None whatsoever.
Good for you.
None whatsoever. And I tell, having coached for 15 years, I told every player that played for, look, if you have any desire at all, even the smallest bit, to go try to do this for a living, go do it. Go try, because you don't want to get down the road and go, man, I wish, or what if, or, you don't want to go there. So go give it a try. And I gave it a full couple of years and working and playing and trying to make it work, and found some success through there. But again, when you see it done, and I think that's one of the things that when people come out here and watch these guys play, you see it done in its highest form. It's amazing what they can do with a golf ball. And so that's I was a long, long way from there.
You mentioned Coach Moore, Johnny Moore, one of the best people on the planet.
Yes.
Love Coach Moore. He came and grabbed this snotty little kid out of Shelbyville, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
And to come play at MTSU. But it set you on that path where you eventually would follow him as the coach there, have success there. That sort of set up where you are now. And we'll talk about getting in the administration of MTSU in a little. I know everything about you.
Yeah, I know.
But Coach Moore, we would be remiss not to mention him prominently in this discussion.
Yeah, there are several men in my life outside of my father that you look back on and say, these were the men that really helped shape my life as it is today. And behind my dad, Johnny Moore is the next one. And, not only did he give me a chance to get an education for free and play golf, but he also gave me a chance to come back and work for him, and teach me what he knew and let me make mistakes and fall on my face as a young assistant. And then step out of the way and provide that support for me to become a head coach. I still talk to him every few weeks, even today. And, if he could get down here and be a part of some of this in some way, I know he would. But
you going to drive to Bowling Green and get him?
I would certainly. If he called me, I would absolutely go get him.
That's where he's not a Red fan, and not WB, but that's where his grandkids are, right?
His grandkids are up there. He likes being kind of the only blue dot in the big pits. He enjoys that a lot when it's going good. So he enjoyed that this year on the basketball front. But yes, he likes going to church in his MT gear and making sure everybody knows that he's there. So
greatest moment at MTSU. I remember I interviewed you at Old Fort, I think, one day about you had a golfer who was doing really good. That was the first time I'd met you. I think like 2007 or 8 back in there. Greatest moment as a coach.
Oh man, boy, that's a good one. Wow, there were so many great moments. I guess I would say the team I had in 2009 and 10ish that finished 15th at the national championship. That was the highest finish for any team in the Division I era at MTSU ever in the national championship. And it just so happens that the NCAA national championship back then, they cut it from 30 teams made it. They cut it to 15 after 2 days, and we made the cut and actually finished. We beat Texas and Alabama and all these guys, and flew back home. And there were, I can't remember the name of the spot. One of the was called was Sam's. I don't know what it is, but anyway, we show up and I was just going to take the kids to eat. It was 8 or 9 o'clock to take them to eat dinner before they went back, and it was kind of the end for some of them. And there's 200 people at this restaurant waiting on us to get there. This is just a little mid-major golf team. And it was really something to see the community get behind it. But, competitively, that was it. But then now at 43, I've had the chance to watch my players get married and have children. And I've said it 1,000 times. I'm always more proud of the men they become than the golfers they will ever be. And I told them, even the ones that have been out here in this arena, from Jason Millard to Kent Bull and the likes, you're never going to accomplish anything on the golf course that will make me more proud than seeing you being good husbands and fathers and citizens. Nice. And I mean that. And so having watched them get married and have children and watching them, have their own families and being a part of some of that, that's probably what I'm most proud of looking back.
Who's the young man was taking care of his mom?
Jason Millard.
Jason, yeah.
Yeah, he, I had the chance, you had to talk to him, but it's a phenomenal story. But his mom had MS, basically his whole life, and she passed away last year. His dad, Eddie, passed away right after he got finished playing. So he's been taking care of his mom for a long time. And then when his dad passed away, it was just him, and he took care of his mom and had his card out here for several years. When she got really sick, it became quite a struggle for him because, he had to hire somebody to take care of her full time. And he's out here. He felt guilty the whole time. It affected his play. He lost his status. He was going back to Q school in the fall of last year, and she died a couple days before he left. And he didn't go. So he completely lost all of his status at that point in time. I got the chance to call. So we get four sponsors picks each year at this event, and the bank is kind enough to let us be involved in a lot of that. And I got to call him and tell him that we were going to give him a spot this week because
great.
That's great. Guys like that need a start, right? They need a chance to turn into who knows what, and to hear the emotion in his voice and know that here we are, how many years he's been done, and he and I are still connected and trying to help him and keep him rolling. So he's in the field this week. I saw him. He played in our pro-am yesterday, and he's doing fantastic. So I'm pulling for him. But yeah, he's a wonderful kid that's been through a lot, and he's got one living relative left. It's his grandfather, and Nandy's got Nandy, they call him, and he's got lung cancer. And it's a difficult situation, and he's coming to watch Jason play, probably for the last time. And it's that will be difficult out here this week when that time comes. But I'm pulling for him and hope he can parlay this into something pretty cool.
By the way, I have the worst posture in America. Nobody even comes close. So let's just get that out of the way.
Both walked away.
Get that.
Oh my gosh.
Literally right before I left, my boyfriend told me, please don't let anything happen to the car. He got hit by a train.
Her mom you did all right.
Micah, how are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm great, brother. We're almost there. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing quite well, man. Thank you, my friend.
Because if you wait till early afternoon, I would suspect that at least those top 5 guest stars will all be sold out.
I don't know how you can see it on camera, but I've already been to the gym. These arms are pretty pumped. Right
Can't tell, but good though. Trevecca, ranked one of the top schools in the U.S. for online Doctor of Education programs by the Princeton Review. We need to get the Princeton Review to give us a thumbs up on this show.
Buddy Allen, it's a tradition. Come on into our store. Buddy Allen, it's a heritage for 40 years and more. What makes a house kind of special? Close friends walking in the door. Flowers blooming in the springtime and little children playing on a Buddy Allen floor.
That's right. It would be a great addition. And, you know, if they end up doing it that way and adding an additional room tax to it, you know, the folks in Davidson County aren't going to pay for it. It's the visitors from out of town that are taking advantage of our city, which we have no problem with. Let them foot the bill for the new stadium.
But where are we headed? We got the Nashville SC Stadium coming online 1st of May. The fairgrounds looks like it's headed for a complete renovation, and with, you know, cup racing there already at the super speedway, that's the next step. Are we barreling down this road out of control somewhat? Because can we handle it with infrastructure, with affordable housing, with obviously traffic and all the things that go into it, our lack of vision of mass transit? The bigger we get and the more things we do, the more issues there are.
That's right. And you're right on all of those points, Greg. Of course, transportation is mass transit's the biggest issue. Affordable housing, I would say, is 1B. And we are focusing on some stuff that, you know what, we got to take care of our own.
Yep.
I thought Greg was going to do a political speech there. He was like running for some kind of office there. I thought you were going to end up by saying the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
It doesn't impact me. I live in Rutherford County, on the good side of the lake. I leave all you Davidson
the
County
good side of the lake. What did you started at a hotel I used to work at, and I will say this: I was the worst employee ever at Gaylord Opryland. And you worked there for how long?
I was there they recruited me from Orlando. I worked there from September of '88 until October of 2001.
You were there 13 years? I was there 4 months. I couldn't wait to get rid of me. I was the worst valet parker employee there of all time.
He stole Dr. J's pizza.
Well, no, Dr. J came to town, and there was in summer of '88. They were all going to the Hermitage for a big event. Richard Dreyfuss was in town, and Dr. J walked up and said, "Hey, can we get to, I need to go to the Hermitage." And I said, "I got you." And I went and took a car out of the valet lot, picked up Dr. J and his lovely wife, took her to the Hermitage, and I said, I get 2 hours. I'll be here. He's like, "What do we owe you?" I said, "Our pleasure, Dr. J. So come back here in 2 hours." And, you know, there were no cell phones back then. So I'll wait for you. And then he came back out 2 hours later, and I drove him back to the hotel.
Whose car?
I have no idea. Out of the valet lot.
But then you got to, well, now this is interviewing. Yeah, we got to interview. Tell them the pizza story.
Oh,
is that why it only lasted 4 months? Because you stole someone's car?
I was the worst. They never found out about that till now, but I was valet parking at the old, I guess it was not the Magnolia, but the Cascades. There we go. And a van pulled up, one of those old conversion vans, really, but at the time it was nice. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, they got a full pizza in there. I'm eating the valet lot." I said, "Cool." So we go to the valet lot. We eat the entire pizza in the valet parking lot. I'm walking back up, and I see the dad and one of the kids waiting. I'm like, "What are they waiting for?" And I look down, Todd. I'd bitten to a pizza so hard I had tomato sauce going true story, going all the way down my shirt. And I walk up and I said, "I wonder what he's going to ask for." And he's like, "Hey, you took our van?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "Yeah, we left the whole pizza in there." And I said, "No." I said, "One of your kids I saw." Grace said, "No, we don't have it." I said, "Yeah, one of your kids took it." He's like, "I bet." I guess he probably took it to the room. I said, "Yes, sir, he probably did." And I've got this giant tomato sauce stain down my shirt. That's why I've told Greg this before. Don't valet park your car in you can do it here because I trust the guys here. But when you see a guy like me come out, don't do it. That's the kind of people Opryland had then back then. But,
and we'll get back on track here. Todd Rodermill is our guest.
That was good, Joe. That was good.
So, but you worked with a guy named Jack Vaughn, and Jack was a GM, and you knew him a lot better than I did. He was extremely gracious to us valet parkers. What was your dealings with Mr. Vaughn?
Mr. Vaughn was former military. He actually got hired. He was running the Century Plaza in Los Angeles. And when WSM came, they were going to build a theme park. They wanted to build a 200-room motel out there. And Mr. Vaughn said, "Well, you really need to be a hotel. We need to have some meeting space to make Nashville a destination." So they followed his advice and originally opened in 1978 with 600 rooms and about 40,000 square feet of space. And then that was so successful in '83, it was his idea. They opened the conservatory and added more space.
Beautiful.
In '88, they added the Cascades and more space. And then in '96, they opened the Delta, and now they're actually 2,893 rooms, the largest hotel in North America outside of Las Vegas.
Is it really?
And he was a great, great man to work for. He was the best person I've ever worked for in my career.
He passed away years ago, but
Passed away like 4 years ago.
yeah. And so I didn't know him like you knew him, obviously, but he was always so nice to us, and he loved that hotel.
He, there's a guy, the GM, he was in there every day at 7, left every day at 6, would come in and work all day Saturday and a half a day Sunday. He just, that hotel is there, and the culture that was there was all because of Jack Vaughn.
What do you take away today when you were walking around the hotel in your role? What did you take? What part of Mr. Vaughn's in you?
Mr. Vaughn always treated everybody with dignity and respect, whether you're a housekeeper or a valet that steals pizzas from people's car or, the general manager of the hotel. Mr. Vaughn treated everybody equally, no matter what race, creed, color, religion. And that has always stuck with me my entire career.
How did you get into the hotel? Now, let's get even back up further. You're from Ohio.
Correct.
Where?
Akron.
You went to Eastern Illinois, correct. Charleston, Illinois. I've been to Eastern Illinois, and I'm in Charleston. I actually spent a week there one night. But when did the hotel administration, how did that come about?
Well, it's a funny story. I was at Eastern Illinois. It was the winter, call it November, December of 1982. And all of a sudden, the campus newspaper said Walt Disney World's coming to town to interview for spring internships. And I had a pickup truck, and I had just bought a Kawasaki LTD 1000. And of course, it's the winter time in Illinois, so it was sitting in the garage. And I said, you know what? I'm going to interview for a position. I had long hair, and I had a beard and mustache. And so I had nothing to lose. I had nothing to lose in the interview. So there's like 300 people interviewed, and they were only going to select 18 people.
Wow.
So I went into the interview. I had nothing to lose. I didn't care. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, I get a letter. I've been accepted to work in the Magic Kingdom college program. So I loaded my motorcycle up in the back of my pickup truck, loaded 6 months worth of clothes, and moved down into a place called Snow White Village. There were 40 double wide trailers with 8 students in each trailer. So there's 320 of us in this campground.
Wow.
And I worked at an internship down at Walt Disney World. And when it was up in May, Disney had the deal. If you stayed and didn't graduate, you couldn't work for them until you graduated. So I hadn't graduated. So I called my mom and dad, and I said, you know what? I'm kind of digging it down here. I get to go to the beach. I got my motorcycle. And I said, I'm not coming home. And so I got a job at the Buena Vista Palace, started as a valet parker. I never stole or ate anybody's pizzas.
Well, you're not going to admit it now, but
I took Ferraris on a couple of spins every now and again.
Yes.
And then actually went to Bellman, bell captain, guest services manager, front desk manager, night manager, and got into sales at the Buena Vista Palace. And then Opryland recruited me in September of '88.
I'm known for asking awful questions. So here's one for you off of the popularity. How much does Ted Lasso play into this? Because I got people now talking about Ted Lasso and soccer who were adamant and love football, American football more than anything else. They love Ted Lasso, and now they've hopped on the soccer.
Yeah, I mean, look, Ted Lasso, I think has just done huge things for the game of soccer in this country in so many ways, hasn't he? I mean, a phenomenon, really. And again, of our age, a show on a streaming platform. And as many people over in the UK, when they know I'm over here now, they say to me, "Oh, what do they think of Ted Lasso?" And so, it's incredible, and it just brings more attention to the game, because it's a strange one, it's the world's game, but it isn't the world's game here.
Right.
But this is the only place where it isn't the world's game. So, but it's good fun to be part of something where, maybe you're not the biggest sport yet, but you're growing and you're becoming a part of something, and building something from a slightly lower base. Whereas everywhere else, it's kind of soccer first, everything else goes in line behind.
Yeah, what's great about Ted Lasso is that watching that, you kind of see from that perspective the affinity and the passion that you guys have in England for the sport. And you're thinking, how does this translate and how does it work? But you see the passion you guys have, and it all kind of translates to our fandom for our sports teams, for our universities. And it's, at the end of the day, Tony, it's about loving your sport and being passionate about what you love.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I find the college stuff, since coming over here, that I've found that, really interesting, because I was a big fan of the NFL back in the UK, and in large part, growing up watching North American sports, was a big reason for wanting to come over here and have a spell in my life and in career working in a completely different market, and getting into college, particularly obviously being in the South and seeing what it means to people. That is as close to what you have in terms of the tribal kind of soccer backgrounds that you have in the UK. So instead of our colleges, we support our towns, our teams.
Yeah.
I'm from Plymouth in the UK. We're a Division 3 team. We've never been in the Premier League, but I support them because that's my hometown. Now, the distinction I would draw over here is, you're a Tennessee person, so you're going to follow Tennessee, University of Tennessee, all your life. Football, the football program, the basketball program, whatever. So that it's a different way of following your sports, but ultimately that's the passion I've seen that we have in soccer that you have over here, particularly in the football market, obviously.
Are you stunned by the sudden the winning and everything that's going on like that? Because like Greg was talking about, if you look at expansion teams, in the sports like the NFL, even the Predators are here, it takes years to get that winning kind of tradition going in here.
Well, last year they just kneeled their way all the way through, right? I mean,
there's been
the
no
most
normal year
kneels,
for this
yeah,
club.
the most kneels in the league,
There were
right?
draws, yeah. I mean,
draws.
18
draws. Excuse me. Yeah.
18 ties now.
Yeah.
And look, I come from a land where we play cricket for 5 days and we call it a draw at the end. So it's never been a problem with me. But they proved it had a difficult schedule. I mean, there hasn't been a normal year yet. Year one, you're a new team. That's tough from the get-go. Then you have everything that happened with the pandemic, and then you come back, not normal circumstances.
Well, let me in the very first home game.
Yeah.
What, 58,000?
Yeah, and in the last game of the normal world, almost, wasn't it? They played one more match after that in Portland, and then everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
And that in itself, how tough is that? You're bringing a new product to the market. You get everybody engaged. You get the largest crowd ever to watch a soccer match in the state of Tennessee to turn up and watch a good game on that first night 2 years ago, and then everything's shut down for months. And when you restart, by the way, but nobody can actually come and watch the games. So adversity has been something this club has had to learn to overcome. And in a sense, I am a bit surprised at how well they've done, because you're not always supposed to. Expansion is, like you say, with the Preds, it's tough, and they've done remarkably well. And we talked about Mike Jacobs building the roster, Gary Smith coaching that group. Wow, what a job! What a great job he's done. This is a guy who he'd had a long spell out of MLS, even though he'd won the league in 2010 with Colorado. He had some people to prove to, in some ways, to say, look, I've been here all along, and now I'm back in this league. I'm going to show what I can do. And, wow, is he showing it?
I love the fact that, by the way, this is all brought to you by good friends at Wilson County Hyundai. Check them out online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Payne Bone and his staff there do an amazing job of getting you into the perfect car. All you have to do is go visit them or check them out online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The coach, when I was in TV one time, I said during a soundbite that I love his voice. He sounds like a James Bond villain. And I got an email from somebody who said that was not nice. And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, it was kind of funny, whatever. But I love the fact that these different, your voice is different, his voice is different, all come together for this team that's now Nashville's team. I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well, then, and I mean, Gary, I like that analogy of the James Bond villain. I mean, he's turned out to be more James Bond, although with a slightly more rougher edge to the voice. With
not the tall guy with the teeth, right? Not that guy. Jaws, not Jaws. No. Yeah.
No, but I mean, I love spending time in Gary's company talking soccer because obviously we come from England. We've both come across a lot of the same characters in the game over the years. So, and Steve Guppy as well, his assistant, again, an Englishman who comes from, the southern part of England where, we still have a house and spend some time still there now, and, it's amazing. It's just that thing of it's a small world, isn't it? And you find yourself chatting away about soccer and enjoying. We love talking about the things that, that we love about America, and then the things that we miss about England, trying to get a good cup of tea, or English bacon, or sausages to go up your English fry up in the morning. It's great. It's all good fun, and they've done a super job here.
Is the time, I know London's 5-6 hours ahead over there. Does that still, at some point you get past that, don't you? I mean, is that, like right now it should be, because your body clock your entire life is 6 hours ahead and now you're 6 hours behind.
Yeah, and it's funny though, it works quite well, I find, for being able to follow soccer on a kind of global scale, because the weekends now, you wake up Saturday morning and you've got all your European soccer on through the morning, and then the decks are cleared for the afternoon, whether you're working on our soccer here, or indeed if you're just, leisure time or watching other sports. So I actually find being on that kind of in this central time zone is actually, it's quite useful. And you can pretty well stay in touch, with the other side of the world as well. It was actually quite funny. We arrived so back late from Seattle. So we landed at 3 a.m., turned my phone on, and there's my dad back in England. And he's WhatsApping me. He's just got up and he's seen the result. And he's like going, "Oh, great win. I've just landed. I haven't been to bed yet. I'll ring you about it tomorrow. Tomorrow? Later today."
Yeah.